Right, so this is a miniMACE. miniMACE is just a mini mobile abrasive cutting equipment. Just 450 bar, and as you see, it's just only one frame. We have the high pressure pump and the mixing unit in one frame. So we have here our petrol engine. This is a high pressure pump. And on the other side, as I said, it's in one frame. We have the mixing unit. So we have our high pressure vessel here and the bypass line here. So abrasive mixing unit and high pressure pump in one frame. We need to check the fuel level, oil level, and we need to connect the water supply. As we have 3 liters per minute, we need at least 3 liters per minute of water supply. But first we check fuel. So it's only unleaded fuel. So fuel is topped up. Then we check the oil level of the engine. So we have here a little dipstick, like at your car, with your car it's the same. So how to check the oil level on a Honda miniMACE engine? You just unscrew it, dip it in, have a look, and it's in the middle, so all is fine. So put it right back in position. And we have to check the oil level of the gearbox, which is here. So that sits between the engine and the pump. So should be right above this little dot in the middle. And it must not be milky. If it's milky, then we have water inside the oil. Next time, the oil level of the pump. Red dot should be right above it, but there's additional dipstick. So, and it should be in the middle between these two marks. So that's all fine. Next thing, we need water supply. So when you open it, just have a look inside and see if the water is flowing, and check the float valve. All right, float valve works. So next step is check all the functions, and therefore we need to connect a high pressure hose. Then we need some anti-seize paste, just a little bit on the tip. And then we need to put it in the suspension outlet inside, clamshell over it. and our little backup ring. So we have here our hose restraint. So this one needs to sit right here. If the hose would pop off, I'm sorry, then we are safe and secured. Before we start the engine, we need to purge the system, so to make sure that there's no air inside. So we have here our little hopper, and just to make sure that we don't bring any debris inside that are might bigger than 0.5 millimeter that we have at our nozzle, we just flush it with clear water first before we put it on top of the high pressure vessel. So we take out our water supply, and then we just give it a good rinse, make sure everything is clean, nice and clean. So then we just place it on top of our high pressure vessel. It's right here. Alright, so now we have water inside here, and then it's always bottom to top. So we have 3 valves here. One is the drainage valve, or filling valve, and the hopper valve. So the hopper valve is closed, so we open the drainage valve, the filling valve, and then the hopper valve. So we see water coming out of the drainage line, so we know it's purged. There's no air inside the vessel now, which is very important. So closing is from bottom to top. Close it, close it, close it. So it's a little bit less water level here. For filling later on, we need a little bit of water sitting above our screen. That's right enough. So we leave that on top for later because we need to fill it up with abrasive. Okay, we already connected our high pressure hose to our miniMACE. Now we need to connect the hose to our cutting device. Our nozzle holder is already in place, so we have it here. Same connection like on the outlet on the mixing unit. Take our high pressure hose, plastic ring, open the clamshell, put the clamshell on the connection, tight, hand tight only, and then the little plastic part. As same here, hose restraint. So it's sitting right here. You can put it wherever you want, as long as you make sure that it doesn't slip off. And additional, it's not in your way when you move the axis. Okay, so next step would be the flow test. So it's already connected. There's no nozzle inside. We need to flush the hose and the nozzle holder anyhow before we insert a nozzle. And we do that when we do a flow test, just to see if the pump is in a good condition and have enough flow rate. Therefore we need this little measuring jug. We have 3 liters per minute, which gives us in 6 seconds a tenth of it. So we need to have at least 300 milliliters. All right, starting the engine and the miniMACE. We have our control unit here with the key switch, and we have a key switch for the petrol engine. Battery is connected, it's fully loaded. Switch on the key switch. As we see, nothing happens. Most common failure is emergency stop. Hop. See, it starts to boot. Once it's finished, we have a solid green light. There it is. Then we can go on and put on the ignition. We have for the fuel we have open and close. So now it's already open, and then we have a choke. So it's cold outside. We need the choke, and now we can start the combustion engine. It's running. Next step, we need our safety glasses and ear protection. We need to open pressure on off. Now it's open. Solid green light here. It's called pressure on off. We don't have a nozzle inside. This will just open the connection from the pump to the nozzle. If it's closed, it's circulating into the tank. So you see here, water coming out. As I said, we have 3 liters per minute roughly. So we need, in 6 seconds, 300 milliliter at least. That's only on full throttle. So I go and accelerate the engine, and then we will place it at count to 6. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's more than enough. So that's fine. While we are up and running, you can see if we have abrasive coming to the nozzle and to the nozzle holder. Therefore we open the light up. Light is open. Open it here. Now we can have a look if we see abrasive coming. That's called abrasive flow test. So use your measuring jug. There it is. Abrasive inside. There you go. Shut off the abrasive to say let's close the bypass. And we will wait until we have a clear water line coming out of the nozzle holder. All good. Alright, next step is filling up the system with abrasive. So therefore we have still our hopper on top. It's still water inside. We need a little bit of water above the screen. Make sure there's no air bubbles below. Otherwise the aggregate would just sit on that air bubble and doesn't go into the hopper. So we have here our abrasive. It's 120 mesh. 120 mesh. It's a little bit different to the MACE system, which is 80 mesh. So make sure that you have 120 mesh. Make sure it's clean, because any debris which is bigger than 0.5 would fit through that screen and later on into the vessel, and then would travel to the nozzle and create a nozzle blockage. So it comes in 5 kilo packages. So one filling for the vessel is 5 kilograms. We just pour it over the screen. The screen is basically just to avoid that you have bigger particles like leaves or whatever is just flying around, would go into the hopper, and which is much more important, as you see here, you see air bubbles coming up. So that's air which is trapped inside the aggregate. Just to make sure that there's no air going into the hopper and later into the vessel, we have the screen. So never open the screen, just pour the abrasive inside. Just use every time the screen. So now that the abrasive is in the hopper, we can start with our filling process. It's like with the purging, bottom to top. Open the drainage line, then the filling valve, and then the hopper valve. So you see water is coming here. So what happens now, we are exchanging the water which is inside the vessel with the abrasive which is inside the hopper. So if we wouldn't have that drainage line, it would take hours just to get the sand into the vessel. So that's why we have a drainage system. So what we have now is we overfill the system. We see here there's no water coming out, and we still have abrasive inside, which you can see here. So what we do now, so it's not going in, there's no water coming out, so it's overfilled. So we never touch the filling valve and the drainage line now. What we need now, we have this little pump here. It's filled up with water, and you pressurize it, flush it for a second, and you connect it right here. Connected, and then we will open here. So what will happen, the water is just going this way, and then it goes first upwards because that's easier for the water. As you see, the water level is going up here. You see it's coming up. Then you will close the hopper valve, and now the water is going here, so we flush this line, and then it's bottom to top. Still leave it on, close this one, and then we close the filling valve. Now everything is flushed. We can disconnect the water line. Take off the hopper. Okay, so system is filled up. Now we have 5 kilograms of abrasive inside. So that gives us a cutting time of about 15 to 16 minutes, roughly. And next step would be high pressure test, and then we can start with cutting operations. Next step, high pressure test. We purge the system, we flush the hose, we check the float. We filled up the system with abrasive. Now we can put in our nozzle. So this is our nozzle. This is compared to the MACE system, it's just a 0.5 millimeter nozzle, so it's slightly smaller. That's why we need to use the 120 mesh abrasive. So we are going to our nozzle holder. Make sure it's clean. Alright, never use a spanner to tighten that cap, so just use your hand. Make it tight, but only use your hands. So let's check everything is tight and can't move. Okie doke. So to protect our surface, we have here ceramic plates. So it's very simple setup. But just make sure that you don't cut anything that you don't want to cut, which is in the soil, like cables, line, water lines, whatever. Because if there's no protection, it will just cut through the concrete and then you maybe damage something which is underneath. So just be aware that you protect everything which is below the concrete and which you don't want to cut.